This is the 207th episode of CloudFocus Weekly for the third week of February 2015. This episode is titled Gotta Wear Shades. CloudFocus Weekly is brought to you by Clone This User. Clone an existing Salesforce user with a click of a button via the desktop or in the excellent Salesforce One mobile. Available for free on the App Exchange, or go to www.clonethisuser.com, which will bring you to the App Exchange, and you can try it out for free. I'm your host, Jason Atwood, and join me, co-host, 207 times in a row, Justin Gotta Make a Pick Edelstein.
I'm doing my picks right now.
That is probably the perfect time to do it.
I've got it. I've got a pick.
Excellent. Awesome. We have an agenda today. We're going to talk about the blog post of the week. And then we have called The Power of Community. So talk about that. And then we have a kind of an interesting article that, you know, one of those like, oh, it's a headline article, but then you read it and it's really, it's a little bit about stock price and whatever. But I thought it was a good jumping off point. So it's called Why Salesforce Has Passed Its Prime, which is kind of like, ooh, got to read that.
Got to read that one.
Got to read that. And then, you know, we'll talk about the main points he makes. And I think because we know Salesforce very well, and I think maybe it's an interesting side point. The homework for the blog, for the podcast, was to come up with some things that Salesforce does right, and to come up with some things that Salesforce could do better in. Needs improvement is the category. And so I thought we would talk about them. So sort of, you know, take the article as a jumping off point to get to that, and then we'll make our CloudFocus pick of the week, which you will have to make.
I already did.
Okay, great. All right, starting on blog.arkusinc.com, The Power of Community, the newest blog of the week, is saying a play-by-play of highlights from the Salesforce success community. Basically talking about just a lot of things that are happening in the success community that you might or might not know about. A little bit of love for us at Arkus for our participation in, including CloudFocus Weekly, a full mention in the blog post. Crazy that a blog on Arkus Inc. would mention the Arkus Inc.
That's 2 weeks in a row.
2 weeks. Oh, no.
2 weeks in a row that the
Podcast?
podcast got mentioned in the blog post.
When did it get mentioned last week? On the How We Blog?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't think you mentioned the podcast.
I did.
Oh, okay. So also talking about some of the sort of splinter groups off the community, like the Girly Geeks group and the Midwest Dreamin', which were, you know, where the success, I guess, the community of Salesforce is interesting because it's kind of grown and gone into other areas that aren't really controlled by the community or Salesforce itself. So an interesting read.
They are quite literally controlled by the community.
The community, not Salesforce.
Salesforce.
Trademark registered community.
Right.
Okay. So interesting, written by someone who's deep in the community. So go check it out at blog.arkusinc.com. We're going to talk about a lot of community stuff today, I'm sure, in our right and wrong. But let's get to the meat of the podcast this week.
Sure.
This article on Forbes, it was on Forbes.com. Again, 5 reasons that Salesforce.com has passed its prime.
Can I just say I hate this website?
Oh, yeah. The Forbes website is terrible.
Forbes, you're awful.
Yeah.
First
it's
of all,
it's one of those click through 300 things to get to the part you want. Then
you know
it's on 7 pages.
Useful?
What?
Having a web page that has an article that you have to page through. Like, why can't you just, hey, my screen scrolls infinitely.
Infinitely?
Infinitely.
Infinitely?
Infinitely? Infinitely?
Infinitely.
How many times does it take? Isn't that what I said to start?
Listen, I just want to say, anything you say terrible today, I'm gonna be okay with. It's because you have.
I have this mic.
You have this mic.
Oh, I'm stuck with the B League mic.
The oldest snowball of all the snowballs
might have died.
It might be that, but
I
we have
got the minor league mic today.
Good news is we have 4 snowballs, but we don't have them all here.
This is not a snowball.
So we will have to.
Yeah. Why do I have to page through 4 pages to read an article that is like less than 1,000 words, probably? And you know what else is unnecessary? having the live updating stock ticker whenever you mention the name of a company.
Oh yeah,
I know you're Forbes, but so not necessary. Just slows my page down.
The worst part of the scrolling piece,
stupid Forbes,
is that they give you the header of the thing for the next one. Like number 2 is at the end of page 2, but like you have to then continue to actually read it. It's also huge, and it's not a lot of data. It's all to get these clicks, to get this nice big ad of Emerson at the top, and what's the one on the side? Emerson on the side.
Content on the bottom.
Yes, all these promoted stories and things that get paid for, and it's terrible.
Because they literally have more articles if you scroll down the page.
The good news is you don't have to read the article. I mean, once you've read it, because I actually summarized the 5 main points.
Yeah, I read the article. Thanks for summarizing this, because drive me nuts going through the article.
It's terrible. So here are the 5 main points. One is this is not one. This is prevalent in all of them. And I think we should just quickly talk about the 5 main points and then get into our points, the right and wrong.
Okay.
One is NetSuite taking customers.
Yep. Sure.
This is the weakest I feel of all the points. It's like, well, yes, if you're in a market that's maturing, that everybody has customers, right? At a certain point, there's no new customers to go get. So then people start to take each other's customers. So NetSuite taking customers away from Salesforce. Honestly, I'm not hearing that on the street.
There's no data in the article to support this case.
Right. It's just like they're taking customers.
You know what I can say, Arkus is taking Deloitte's customers.
Yes, we are. And Microsoft.
Deloitte, look out.
Here you come. IBM.
Look out, IBM's consulting
Anderson Consulting.
Look out, PricewaterhouseCoopers.
We're taking your customers.
Look out. Here comes Arkus. We got your customers.
The next one, I actually, of all of the points, I thought was probably the most, actually it's a couple that I liked, or thought was more valid, was Upstart Competition. So they named off 3, including Zoho, Nimble, and Insightly, and having someone say, we picked Insightly because it's $7 a user. That's great. And I'm a big Salesforce fan, but I'm not an apologist. Clearly, cost is an issue and something we're going to talk about. But
now, with that said,
what do you get for $7?
That's right. He's comparing Salesforce.com Enterprise Edition at $125 a month a user to Insightly. He's not comparing Group Edition or the platform type of license. He's comparing the Enterprise Edition, like one below the top, versus whatever Insightly gives you or Zoho gives you, Zoho at $20 a user a month.
And here's what I think the thing is, the article comes from a place called Fit Small Business. So I kind of like the thing about Salesforce that, good or bad, is that $125 Enterprise Edition is the same edition that you and I use for Arkus, and the same edition that some of the biggest companies in the world use. That same 120, like that same. They might pay less or more than $125. In fact, it's one of my issues with Salesforce. But it's a scalable solution. I don't feel like Insightly could be used by Deutsche Bank, right? Or
maybe by a couple of people there.
Maybe by 2 people. That's what I feel like. I feel like you're kind of comparing. You're comparing a very good license and a very high price compared to $7, but are you really looking at its scalability across an enterprise?
Yeah, probably not when you're looking at Zoho and Nimble and Insightly and not throwing NetSuite onto this as an example, which would have been smart considering the first point was NetSuite stealing their customers. Why not throw NetSuite on here? Same thing with Dynamics. Why not throw Dynamics on there? Why choose these lower end quote
By the way,
upstarts?
Just to throw out some things, Insightly, I had to go to the play, so I'm doing my own research. 100 custom fields.
That's it.
With $7 a month. Yes.
Yeah, so there's some limitations there, huh?
Yes.
What else do you get?
Well, you do get things like QuickBooks Online integration, Mailchimp integration,
nice.
Google Contact and Calendar Sync, custom branding, 100,000 records.
Oh.
I have what, though? I don't know. Let's see down here. Automatic backups, social CRM. You know what? I know what this thing doesn't do is customize. Like, I just know that you can't go in and customize Insightly.
You get 100 custom fields. What are you talking about?
As opposed to
you get branding. What are you talking about?
As opposed to
you get custom branding.
You get 500 custom fields per object
in this
Salesforce.
Particular edition.
Right. Well, that's the thing. Anyway, so I just don't like that comparison. So let's keep going on. His reasons. Next up is they spend too much money on marketing.
So that's the reason why they've passed their prime?
Yeah.
While I can agree with the statement, spending a lot on marketing, I don't think they spend nearly as much as like Microsoft, for example. I don't see Salesforce commercials splattered all over television. I don't see a Super Bowl commercial for Salesforce this year, at least, because we have seen it in the past. But they're comparing them now to Workday. So once again, like, I wish that he would have kept his comparisons like
to any
product. Yeah, like if you're going to say, well, NetSuite's taking market share, okay.
Right.
Then in the next section, show me what NetSuite costs. And then in the next section, well, Workday spends this much on marketing and is growing by this percent. All right, how much does Workday cost and what does it do?
The other thing that I think is a little bit off in this.
Man, we're ripping this guy.
Yeah, sorry.
Not a good article.
No, it's not. Again, I think it's the article is more of a thing for us to then talk about the good and bad of Salesforce. A way to get us there without being like, hey, let's just talk about the good and bad of Salesforce. But what he does is compare the revenue growth, 28.3, with the spending of revenue on sales and marketing. Now, here's the thing. He's combining sales and marketing. My guess is if you ripped apart that number, 51.3.
That's percent. 51.3%.
Yeah, but it's a combined of sales and marketing. My point is what part of that is sales?
Right.
And what part of that's marketing? Because we know that Salesforce spends a lot on sales.
Yes, they do.
They have a huge sales force.
Correct.
Amazingly enough. So, again, not a very good comparison. And the last of his bad points was that two more. Need to adopt a social selling. He basically saying that the lead, conversion, account, contact, opportunity is like old school sales methodology and doesn't take into account sort of social selling.
Salespeople using LinkedIn, Facebook, Google+.
But
everyone's using Google Plus to sell things these days.
All the time. But what I don't understand is that he doesn't explain what social selling is.
No.
So he's here's the traditional sales model.
For $7 a month, you get it. It's part of the listing that you
said. There.
You said you get social
selling.
Right.
But what does that mean?
I don't know.
Don't you still need to capture the data about that person? Maybe their connection to social profiles and things like that is a little bit more rich than Salesforce, which we can all agree to as I was posting and ranting about the LinkedIn thing still being in beta. Like, still has a big beta sign on it. I'm like, this has been 2 years. You can take the beta off this pretty bad integration.
Testing
Not testing anything. So anyway, I thought that was pretty weak. And then high stock market valuation. It's worth a lot of money. They do talk about, losing money based on GAAP accounting or whatever. I'm not going to get into their valuation. I don't know why that would make it. I mean, again, he's making a lot of comments about like pricing and product, but then, the pricing is too high. Okay, I don't know. It's probably the one I won't argue with because I'm not going to argue about pricing of stock.
Yeah, I don't know how that says someone's past their prime, but whatever.
With more to, I thought this was an interesting way to start us off into a conversation about things that we think the Salesforce is doing right.
Okay.
And things we think they're doing not so right.
Okay.
We actually wrote wrong. I'm going to say wrong. I will put
You did 3 of each.
Yeah, I did.
I did 3 and 2.
I always do more work than you do. I think that the thing I want to say, first of all, is we are completely and utterly biased. So if you're just turning in this podcast because someone sent it over to you and said, oh, these guys are reviewing Salesforce and what's right and wrong about Salesforce, this ain't the podcast for you. Justin and I have a combined 20-something years doing Salesforce. We make our living doing Salesforce consulting. We're about as deep in the Salesforce community as you can get. So now that's not to say we can't be, honest and we can't say things that for what they're worth. But we're very biased. So we're, our comparisons of NetSuites and Microsoft Dynamics and all that are next to nil. We don't get into that business. That's not our business. So we know one, but we don't know the other side. And it is a massive piece of our life. So we're very, very close to it. I just want to put that out there. I don't want it to be like, oh, these guys are...
it's a massive piece of our life enough, so much so that we podcast about it.
I think we actually have done 207 podcasts.
Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I think 60% of the content of CloudFocus Weekly is Salesforce based. Maybe 55%.
Where are you gathering that metric from?
This guy wrote this article. Peter Cohen, he told me. Cohen. Anyway, so I thought we'd then name some things that we think they're doing right and some things wrong. One we'll do right, wrong, right, wrong.
Okay.
You go first with a right.
With a right? All right. So I kind of combined two things here.
Of course.
I wrote mobile.
Okay.
And then I wrote API first mentality. So I think that these both go towards a shift in understanding that a lot of these so-called upstarts who were mentioned in the article that are going to challenge Salesforce are going to be built from the ground up this way, mobile.
Right.
And API first.
So what does API first mean to you?
To me, it means every feature that Salesforce is building is supported through the API. They think building API first. So don't just throw something. Sorry, I'm using like the words to describe it. Don't just build something without the ability to connect to it through an integration.
Right.
So don't just build like a point solution that's available through the user interface without thinking through the ramifications of somebody wanting to integrate and leverage that feature in another way. So, or putting a different UI on top of it or something along those lines.
Making it available to both internal applications. So API doesn't just necessarily mean external. It also means internal. So writing Apex and triggers and things like that, you can access the API so you can do some of the work yourself, as well as external. And the fact that they've even started doing, they've even
API
built features API only, which is kind of, I mean, actually it's a little frustrating because you tell people about, hey, you want to track this, this, and this. Well, there's only an API for it, right? And you can do it by the API, but you really can't do it. In fact, the permissioner was born of something, and actually calling this user was born of something that are available in the API, but no user interface to do so. Right.
Correct.
Okay.
So
that's a good one.
Mobility, I think, while they've had a mobile app for a while, they're now going back and rethinking the mobile strategy. While I think that this is a right, it could also sort of go in the wrong category of the whole too much hype around it.
Not enough true to the core.
Run your business from your phone type of stuff. I don't really think that exists, but
it does. Well, if you have a very small business,
if you have 100 custom fields.
If you have 100 custom fields,
custom branding, and social selling, then you're mobile. All right, so that's my deal.
Mine is my good one is they're adaptive. I guess the same lines. We didn't write these together, but adapting and innovating. They are being true to sort of the space and the sort of upstarts. I'm gonna make Google as an example of a company that is willing to try things and let them fail, and then say they failed. Whereas there are companies that will, keep producing the Zune for many, many years, even though the Zune is as dead as a doornail. It's actually an interesting case. There will be some very good book written in 10 years from now about Microsoft and how Microsoft started, where they went, what they became, and now what they're changing into. Because they are, if you want to study a company, a software company, and sort of DNA change, they're doing it now. They're changing a lot of stuff. They have a new leadership. They're going, and they're changing a lot of stuff that Microsoft, you would think of Microsoft being sort of the worst case scenario for. So they're an interesting company that way. They're going to subscription model. They're going to cloud. They're going to privacy. They're going to security. I mean, they're doing all this sort of stuff that they would never do before because they kind of own the market. Anyway, I think Salesforce has a good track record of adopting new things as they come along, adapting to new technologies, and making them part of their thing, and also building on stuff, and then also kind of knowing when to let go, right? Again, the example was 2 years ago, the Dreamforce keynote, is 2 hours and 15 minutes into it before they mentioned the word chatter. The year before, or 2 years before that, it was you could do a drinking game and end up drunk with the amount of times that they use their chatter. They get that sometimes, you get a cool thing, but doesn't mean you just drive it home for 5 years. You gotta, okay, it was good, but now let's move on to more interesting things. Ideas is one. And there's lots of products. some would consider failures, and some would consider, but sort of they're moving and constantly changing. And maybe there's some speed bumps in that. All right, give me a wrong.
They're wrong. I wrote acquisition strategy, although I don't think that accurately depicts what I'm trying to say, because I feel like the strategy of acquiring technologies and people through acquiring their companies is great and works in a lot of cases, and helps to fill gaps. But when Salesforce does acquire a company, it takes them a really long time to take what they've acquired and make it apparent to the users of the product why they acquired that company. Now, that's not to say it's their responsibility to always say, like, oh, we acquired this company, and all of a sudden, boom, here you go, here's this new thing. But it seems to take a while to get things, like when they bought Instranet, to get knowledge really up to speed. When they bought Activa to get Live Agent, I mean, it took an iteration and then another iteration to now what it is as Live Agent. Like, there was a whole middle step of it being on platform but not quite on platform. And it's a big path that they go down almost every time, where something comes on platform and then needs to change again, a whole another development cycle around it.
And it's multiple
I can
iterations.
Cite many examples of this happening.
ExactTarget is one that's a current sort of pain point. But what's interesting about that, I don't mind that happens. I guess if I were Salesforce, I'd be more upfront about it. Like, but how do you continue selling something by saying, hey, there's this really cool thing we bought. We bought it for all these great reasons, primarily a lot of which you don't even know about. But we're going to bring it into the platform. And at the end of the day, it's going to be better than it was, and it's going to be integrated into Salesforce, and you're really going to like it. But for the next year and a half, I'm going to continue selling it to you, and it's kind of going to suck. It's going to go down, and it's going to get worse. And the features are going to get worse, and it's going to get slower, and it's going to be harder to deal with, and you're not going to like that for about a year and a half. But at the end of the year and a half, or maybe 2 years, it's going to be good.
What you're saying is pulling the like sarcasm away from it, but what you're saying is that those are the facts. Like, that is what happens. So that's what I'm saying about the wrongness of it.
But it's that they're not front about it.
Well, yeah, they'll keep, like, for example, they'll keep selling you Salesforce content until Mark Benioff decides on a whim, this thing's free.
Right.
Oh. You mean that huge mega pitch you came in a week ago to pitch me on Salesforce content
at $35 per user per month
is free now?
Right.
Oh, okay.
Well, but again,
and knowledge. Now you really don't need to buy, like, every user needs a knowledge license.
Right.
You need like a couple.
Right. Well, I mean, it is. If anybody's paying attention to how Salesforce does stuff with their pricing, it's using the people who will pay for things in advance, using their wallets to fund the product. So they buy something, they sell it as a separate product, they get enough feedback on it, and then as they iterate on it, they turn it into something that's usually free. I mean, it's almost happened so many times you can just predict it. All right, so that was your wrong. Mine is. Oh, that was your wrong?
Yeah.
All right, well, that's okay. I guess I had getting into too many markets products. So going on that same thing, it's like it seems like a lot of balls in the air, and I'm not sure that the growth and the amount of people and the amount of acquisitions and bringing them all together is really as smooth or as good as it could be.
There's a lot of clouds.
I'd kind of like them to more focus on less of the, there's so many of these things and there's so many offices, and it feels like the company at some point doesn't know what the other side's doing at all. And I think that's from the acquisitions. Like, there's all huge divisions of Buddy Media, and divisions of Radian6 and Desk.com.
Like one account executive manage a relationship with a customer, but they can't be the ones who actually can sell the full product line.
The product line is immense at this point.
So if you're talking to someone and you want to buy your Salesforce license, great. And then if you want to tack on, ExactTarget, it's like, oh, let me get the ExactTarget account executive in here.
Then we get the work.com.
Well, I think work.com is fully like rolled in at this point.
Right, but at one point it wasn't. You could sit in a meeting with like 4 salespeople from Salesforce, all dealing with different products,
right, and different like sales engineers to demonstrate the product.
So give me a good.
A good. I think this is like probably a great, which is
we have one that's common, so we can merge them.
I think this is great. Cloud roots and sticking to it.
It's interesting you say that because I can pull out examples of where they're not sticking to it, but okay.
So 15 years ago, they made a bet, and they bet on cloud computing.
Right.
And kind of stuck to their guns through thick and thin, and they were the ones out there on the front lines evangelizing the fact that you could run your business applications in this thing called the cloud. And I remember at first, it was the sales pitches were educating people on the cloud. It wasn't even so much like, it was like a given that the product was good. It was, we need to educate you on where your data is being stored.
That was like the first thing, even to get people beyond what is the cloud.
Into like
the cloud
vision and the educational aspects of the cloud. And now
it's a footnote.
It is a footnote, and I feel like that's where they're rooted, and they stuck to it. And even with things like, the whole where they almost allowed you to. I think they pulled it, that data residency thing where you can...
It's a feature.
Is it a feature, though?
It is.
I feel like it's
And they have tons of features that are not cloud. They have a version of a private cloud.
Yeah, but that's still, it's still in their, it's not multi-tenant, but it's still in their data center.
Right, but that's like saying
it
only has one wheel, but it's still a car.
Multi-tenancy
is kind of the platform.
I mean, you can then argue, is my Amazon server instance cloud or not?
You have an Amazon service instance?
Or ours. Where's our website running?
It's running on Rackspace.
Our Rackspace.
Our Rackspace is actually in the cloud instance, yeah.
Right.
It used to be a dedicated box, which is actually a physical piece of hardware, which is not cloud, although it's hosted. But now it is actually on a cloud instance. It is actually a bootable cloud instance that runs multi-tenant.
Okay. I still think that they stick to it. Their stick-to-itiveness through the mid-2000s and early teens has paid off in that respect.
Yeah, I would like to see them not cave to doing the little side things.
If they were going to cave, they would have caved a long time ago.
Oh, they've done it now. I mean, the GE, the GE private cloud. There's all these kind of things that. The other thing is, when you evangelize the cloud so much and then you pull out a non-cloud product, don't try to tell us it's a cloud product. It's a private cloud. No, it's not. Just stop telling us about it. I'm gonna do a good one. I'm gonna skip over the one that we both agree about. And go to software development. While there's definitely been some bumps and bruises, Spring 14, what they've put together, I think it's now 38, 39. Well, I mean, we probably know what the numbers are, releases, and that's impressive. I mean, I used to write code. I used to be a coder. Here at Arkus, we develop things and keep up with stuff. That engine that they have created for software development and the 3 times a year and the release notes and the documentation and the getting it out there and releasing across, what used to be a few pods and now is 19, 20, 30 pods. I mean, it is impressive. Mm-hmm. And that they can keep going at this pace and keep up. And even with this last release was a big one. There's lots of stuff in there that we've been waiting for a long time. They kicked off a lot of idea exchange ideas because of, basically Lightning.
Right.
But still, it's there's lots of stuff that they just keep going on. And, I think it's the thing that limits them from doing bigger things sometimes because that cycle is kind of tough to stay in line with and also do a big project that takes more than 3 months.
Right.
But it is extremely impressive that they've both pulled it off and kept that engine going. And basically
did you read the Parker Harris article?
Yes, I did.
That talked a lot about that.
It's extremely and even their architecture. Anyway, that to me is a huge piece of Salesforce that you can't take away. Insightly doesn't have that, right? There's this thing that you can't compete with that because because they do it and they do it so well. Even companies, I mean, there's been some articles about, our favorite or my favorite company, Apple, really suffering from their release cycle, that they can't even keep up with the release cycle, and they're like the last couple of OSs on the Mac side have been tough and have had a lot of bugs in them because they've been they just can't keep up with the cycle. Now, I'm not to say that Salesforce doesn't have bugs, Spring 14, but there's definitely, they definitely put out a lot of stuff.
It's a year later. You're still not over it, are you?
Yeah, it's gonna be a long time. That was terrible. Anyway, so that's my big one, and then let's do 2 bad ones, and we'll then come back to the good one.
All right. Well, this goes back to the article that we were talking about. So big splash marketing stuff, for lack of a better term.
We have this argument every year at Dreamforce.
Out of touch is what I wrote. And I always, and this does stem mostly from Dreamforce, but sometimes in their like presentations, just in general, I feel like they're sometimes just out of touch with the layman, every person sitting out there in the audience. I mean, there's 100,000 people at Dreamforce, and the stuff that they present during the major keynotes apply to a very small percentage of the people that are there. It was
Coca-Cola, custom boats,
and GE
with
turbine engines.
And turbine. I mean, that defines my life.
You know what I really find, a bit of, I mean, it's kind of a slap in the face. It's like you're on Twitter and you're talking about a boat, and then you're using your new BI Wave analytics tool to find that people in landlocked Arizona are talking about boats, and you just wander over there and sell them a boat. Like social selling, big data, analytics, like that stuff just kind of gets me a little bit.
I don't know about you, but every time that I get
Arizona landlocked, I hope it is.
That every time I get I think it is. Every time I get a Coca-Cola, it comes in from a private drone.
Well, yeah, of course.
I mean, I totally agree. There's a part of it, and I think we always argue about this in Dreamforce, so go back to our Dreamforce ones if you want to hear this argument 4 times over. Part of their innovation strategy is always be pushing the edges, and so in order to get people to sort of think about and to start talking about and to be moving towards the next thing, they have to constantly be talking about the next thing. They can't be sitting there going, hey guys, you know what were really important this year? Leads. Leads are really important this year.
What I'm really talking about here is like, and you can do this too.
Oh.
But what they don't say is if you're Coca-Cola and have Coca-Cola's budget.
Oh, okay.
Because it makes you sit there in the audience and be like, well, what button do I click to make that happen? And it's like, it's not the button click to make that happen. It's a lot of time and thought and honestly money went into making that happen.
I totally agree that this year especially had 2 big things, and this is a Dreamforce thing, had 2 big things. One, the keynote was way off, and it was as much as it's all the splash and circumstance now, it was completely off for 99.9% of the people in that audience, and I thought that was a shame, considering the year before, with all the stuff on the nonprofit, was like so heart-wrenching. This year felt like, oh, well, last year we were all about nonprofits. This year we're all about big business. That was one. The second was the Wave Analytics. The way they presented it during Dreamforce, and I was at Dreamforce, and I went to keynotes, but was not the way it is. And it's very disappointing now to look back at what the Wave Analytics platform is, productized, how you could do it, all that, and the way they presented it. Because they presented it as a every company business. It's you're on the road, you pull up your Wave, you look at this, you see the opportunities. And it ain't that. It might be that in 3 years, but it ain't that now, and I thought that was a shame because they really took a product that's, that 9 people have access to because of the pricing and whatever, and they kind of made it look like everybody had it, and I thought that was a shame. So I totally agree at this point. Mine, I'm just going to go to 2. I guess the pricing selling strategy, I think they're, if past its prime, I think their selling strategy is past its prime. It's a very old school software sales. Every software license is a negotiation, and nobody pays list price. It's always a talkie. We get down, and they have tons and tons of salespeople, and it just feels very like 1950 sales, not 2015 sales. maybe that's just my opinion. It feels just very salesy, old school salesy, and not like, there's other companies out there. It's like the price is the price, and here's the features, and here's the stuff. And yes, we can, talk about other stuff, but that I don't love. And the pricing, I think, again, the pricing of sort of it just being this, it's this price, but it's not really a price. It's always just negotiation and this and that. And I think that actually gets in the way of the software. And maybe you can't do business with Coke and IBM and GE. I don't know. I buy Cokes and whatever, but maybe you can't do business with them in an open, fair, transparent market. But like the way that they're doing it now, it doesn't feel like the rest of the company is. It feels very based in old school. And the second one I'm just going to throw in there, since you didn't have an extra one for the wrong, and then we'll get into the last right one, is customer service, which is something that
we've done an entire podcast about.
Yeah, it is something that I take very seriously. Like, I am someone who, like, when I get great customer service, I talk about it from the world. I'll even have I'll tell you, QuickBooks Online has great customer service. Saturday, called them up, spent 2 hours on the phone with them, a live human being, went through, screen share. Like, that's customer service. That's like support. Companies like Mac Sales or OWC that I bought on a Sunday morning. I'm looking for a product to upgrade my wife's MacBook Pro, and it's Sunday morning, and I jump on a chat, and the person was on it, gave me the right information, boom, boom, boom. Here you go. Didn't try to upsell too much. Just said, I said, can I get a lot of speed out of more RAM? They're like, not really. You don't see speed out of RAM unless, you have too little. It was brilliant.
Well, I'm gonna counterpoint you.
Well, let me just say,
okay,
this is something that has been getting much better. That their customer service has been, at times, years ago, terrible. But it has been getting much better. They've been focusing on it. I know they have, because I've talked to the executives and whatever, and it has been getting better. They have been putting more effort into it. They've been putting better frontline people. They've been insourcing. They've been taking them back from outsourcing. They've been making their ticket system better. They've listened. So I think it's something that. But if I compare them to the companies that I consider the best of customer service, they don't fall on that list. They fall on the list below that. And I feel like for this type of company that touts customer service, that sells customer service software, I feel like they should be better than everybody else. They should make Rackspace look like terrible customer service, which is almost impossible because they have some of the best in the world, or Conga, or whatever. There's so many companies I could name that just have amazing customer service. It costs money, but you can do it.
Yep.
You're not going to counter?
I had a recent good experience with their customer service and support, so.
But I deal with their support all the time. And yes, it's been getting better.
You know what they don't do, though? Because you mentioned Conga, and I think, just to throw a shout out to Conga as a really great AppExchange partner, and they have fantastic support. What you can do with Conga is just give them a call at random, anytime, and be like, how do I do this?
Right.
And they will spin up a GoToMeeting and show you and do it with you right then and there. You can't do that with Salesforce support.
No.
I don't know how that scales necessarily, but like, you can't just call them out of the blue and say, I don't know how to write this formula. Help.
Right. Well, but again, I think we'll get to our last point, which I think
segue into the next point.
But let me talk about. Let's go back to customer service. I don't expect them to have that type of support, but I do expect that when I put, and this is like the age-old thing, when I put in the ticket, please email me. And when it says now at the bottom, how do you want to be contacted? Email. And I check email, and I put in my email, and I say, please email me when this ticket is done or for updates or whatever. And I get a phone call.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm not talking about getting on a GoTo and showing me how to do 17 hours worth of configuration. I'm talking about...
Isn't that great customer service?
Yeah, that is great customer service. But that's not even what... Well, yes, great customer service goes above and beyond. But above and beyond doesn't have to be like, we do everything for you. It has to start with like doing the things you're supposed to be doing right. Anyway, moving on. So the thing that we think we both agree that Salesforce, the right will end with a positive point.
Is community.
Is community.
They do community right.
Yes,
and
better than
and they eat their own dog food on it too. They use their own products.
Yep.
Customer community, partner community.
Yep.
We're in both of them.
Yep. Partner community is much better.
Partner community is great.
Used to be terrible.
There's
now
nonprofit community,
yes,
which is
Powerless
also
Hub.
very, very well done. And these types of questions, the one I just sort of brought up was, how do I write this formula? Guaranteed. You got a question about how to write a formula, how to run a specific kind of report, how to do virtually anything. You throw it up into answers, or you throw it into the community at certain groups, like the one-click admin group, or the
Who
owes me a beer group. Steve Moe will answer you. You throw that up into any of these areas in chatter or answers, you'll get your answer.
Right.
And oftentimes above and beyond what you would get from a support person, actually always. You'll get screenshots. You'll get an example. Here is the formula. Insert your field here.
Yeah, the only difference is that they won't do it on a phone call. Like,
well,
they can figure out how to make
virtual.
community. Yeah, if they make communities into, but communities is amazing. And not just starting, answers is a huge one. My favorite, and this is what I guess where we are going back to the blog post here, is ideas. I mean, ideas to me is a, wow, terrible pun, but it's a great idea. Like, it's a product that I have used since they started it. I remember before Ideas was Ideas, when it was, what was it called? I forgot.
Crispy News.
Crispy News. Good one. And it is, not only do they allow for it to happen, which is obvious, any company can do that, and many companies have, but they pay attention to it, they take it seriously, and they're always looking to make it better, and they use it as a way to actually build their software.
Yeah.
And that is...
They brag about retiring points.
Right. Yep. Their whole point system, and they build it to the product managers. The product managers have to retire so many points per release. I mean, it's really... there, and they've even, this is newest release, which I haven't talked about, but the newest Ideas release, it's much easier. It's easier to put things up. It's, and I'm on the Idea Exchange all the time. I love voting on ones that I think are important. I love commenting on it, because I know after a billion years, well, not, let's say, what's Ideas been up for 7 years?
Yeah, something like that.
I know after 7 years that it actually
8,
works.
I think, because I think there are ideas that are like 8 years old.
Right. It actually works. It's not just just go throw it there. If you do vote, if you get enough votes, now you can see if it's under the point threshold. You can get above the point. You can get to consideration. And sometimes, I've had little ideas I put up there, and the product manager go in literally an hour later and be like, oh, this is coming in the next release. And I'll be like, great. Like, and I almost, there's nothing better than feeling that a company that size is listening in the community. It's something they do amazingly well, and we know some of the people behind it. It's great stuff. So to right all the wrongs, I guess. And again, I think that's their strategy for customer service. I mean, they're it's like pointing to the community. They're also amazing. I don't know if documentation is part of the community, but their documentation, their help documentation, is pretty second to none. It's updated. It's great. It has tons of examples. I mean, how many times do I go in and look for some, that image formula to make an image? I'm like, I don't bookmark it or anything. Just Google it, find it, and then, there it is. They got the 17 examples. All right. We do not know what we're doing next time on CloudFocus Weekly.
No, we don't.
Do we not? We will come up with something fun and exciting.
Okay.
But for this time, we're going to do some picks. We'll finish up with some picks. So you actually found one?
Yeah.
Good job. What is this thing that you've never used in your life?
I think I might want to install this in our sandbox and play around with it. It's called Opportunity Manager.
Okay. You want me just can you tell me how you came up with this pick?
Yeah, someone sent it to me in an email. People know I'm not good at this picks thing, so they.
So
just
what do you do?
Do
you actually at the beginning of the podcast you send off an email to the person and say,
no,
"Can you send me a
them
pick?"
And I just star them.
Oh, you star them. Okay, so you go back to your old list.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So this.
Oh, we need to do a podcast on NGO Connect.
Oh yeah, we probably should. Why you say that like just now? Like that just hit you now? You couldn't wait till after we were done.
What do you mean? We're transparent to the listening community. Anyway, I'm also just throwing you under the gun, so then you have to do it.
All right.
Anyway, let's go.
So this Opportunity Manager by AlgoWorks is a visualization of, and I'm sorry if I don't 100% get this right, the folks at AlgoWorks, but a visualization of your opportunities. So you get to sort of see your opportunities in a different way, not just in in the forecast view, not just in list views, not just in a dashboard, but it allows you to take a good look at customizable lists of your opportunities, dragging and dropping opportunities around, looking at things by stage, and they allow you to even update things. And there's charts and graphs that are included in this tab. It's like a native. Looks like just a really nice little Visualforce page for visualizing opportunities in a
Looks
different
nice.
way.
I'm just taking out the little screenshots here.
Looks nice, right?
Looks nice.
Not too shabby.
Kind of, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of forecasts. But
That's what I was saying.
Blown
it's
out.
like the forecast view, but
Oh, did you say that and I wasn't paying
yeah,
attention?
I did. But kind of nicer with these
Who's it by?
charts. AlgoWorks.
And how much is it?
It is free.
That's pretty good. That's a good price.
It's a nice price.
I like it. So good job on AlgoWorks.
100% native, 100% free.
So mine is free as well. This was my pick last week, but we ended up not making picks. It would have made a little bit more sense last week, but it actually still makes as much sense. So for those of you who don't know and haven't been around for the last 40 years, there's a little program on NBC on Saturday nights called Saturday Night Live that just
Saturday night what?
Yes, Saturday Night Live.
Is it live?
It's live TV, about an hour and a half. It's an hour and a half show, but there's only about 10 minutes of content in it.
That's not true.
It's kind of true.
Only 10 minutes of good content.
Good content, yeah. So they celebrated their 40th anniversary last weekend.
Fantastic.
I watched the entire thing on Hulu.
I watched it live.
In 2 episodes. You watched it live?
Live. As it was happening, with commercials.
How many commercials?
Not that
300?
many. It was SNL. It was good.
It was both awesome and terrible to watching it because some of it was just awesome and there was some great guest stars. The thing I didn't like is they actually showed all the guests at the beginning. They should have
the red carpet.
No, I didn't see the red carpet. I just saw the opening credits. So I saw all the people who were going to be in it. And it was left no surprise. But there were some great people. There's some people who have aged brilliantly.
Yep.
Eddie Murphy, like that guy looks exactly like Eddie Murphy from. And then there are guys who look terrible, and you're like, you can name a lot. I'm not gonna name any people. Anyway, it was a great show. If you haven't seen it, go check it on SNL.
Just fast forward through the Californian sketch because that one's always terrible.
That was terrible.
Well, Californians is always awful.
But then why put it on SNL?
I don't know.
So to go along with this, they put out an app on I guess iPhone and other devices. What's nice is it is all of their sketches. So you can find all the music videos, the thing in the box. I don't even know how I can say that. They're all available. You can search, you can find them, you can play them. It's literally one of the best video. Like you could just go grab stuff. It starts playing instantly. Look how fast that just starts playing. Like there's not a lot of like cruft to it. It's actually a very fun app. I picked it because of the SNL 40, but then I went back to it and I was actually playing some of my favorite clips and things. It's called SNL. It's free. It's from NBC Studios, and it is good. You should check it out. Speaking of things you should check out Justin at Just Edelstein. Check out me at Jason M. Atwood and at Arkus Inc. on the Twitter, facebook.com/Arkus Inc. You can follow us there where we post all the podcasts. Ooh, there you go. I merged them. We're in the Success Community Group. We have our own group in there if you want to see what's going on or vote or ping us or talk to us. We're on LinkedIn, Google+. Remember, if you want to subscribe to the podcast, best way to do that, iTunes or Stitcher. These are 2 great places. Or on your, Instacast or Downcast. Or what are you using nowadays?
I stuck the newest version of Instacast.
I moved over to Downcast. Really been enjoying it.
Good for you.
Downcast.
Do you know what your big thing is that doesn't matter to me is
what?
The syncing.
Yeah, the syncing.
Doesn't matter. Do not do podcasts on my iPad.
Oh,
so
that's a
not
shame.
matter to me.
I use them on both.
I have
the
one
syncing
device
is amazing.
for podcasts, and it's my phone.
Amazing.
Because I don't watch podcasts.
Well, I listen to podcasts
and I
and watch
never
podcasts.
listen to things on my iPad. It's not a listening device for me.
It's just take out the speaker. Take out the speaker. Remove the speaker.
No, I watch things on it. I don't listen to things on it.
And you play Madden
It's like music.
a lot.
Yeah, I play that a ton. Oh my goodness, that's embarrassing. It's
All
terrible.
Right. So
it's
we'll
an
say,
addiction.
Yeah, that's the addiction from Justin
Madden
Jason
Anonymous.
saying, of course, we'll be back next week. And until then, enjoy those cloudy days.